Hello everyone, my name is Samuel Kellett and I'm part of Team Alpha Tampa. The team members for Team Alpha Tampa are Melabajo Geho, myself, and Pedro Wagner. Today we will be discussing article number 4, Reframing Leadership. Article Reframing Leadership by Lee G. Bowman and Terrence E. Dill discusses the 4 theories of leadership organization. These are also known as frames. These 4 frames are broken down into structural, human resource, political, and symbolic. The 2 hypotheses being studied are being used to gain greater understanding of how each frame plays into the effectiveness of different leadership styles in dealing with difficult situations. The first hypothesis states that the ability to reframe in a situation is key to the success of a leader or manager, showing that a leader can change from human resource to symbolic in the same situation. The second says that leadership is based on the situation and that each experience requires a different frame, so showing that you can't deal with every situation in the political mindset. The structural frame focuses on rationale, efficient work procedures, and policies to keep the firm structure together. Structural leaders value cold, hard data. They look towards the end result and hold people responsible for their actions, with clear directions and strict policies. The human resource frame fulfills the interaction between individual and organizational needs. Human resource-minded leaders value the feelings and relationships involved in leading through affiliation and empowerment. These are focused on the relationships and analyzing the connections between the people in order to solve issues. The political frame emphasizes conflict and negotiation among differing groups over the scarce resources which they compete for. Political leaders are networkers. They form groups and build a power base to fuel their organization's agenda. They look to negotiation in the form of conflict resolution. Political frame is usually needed when there are a lot of outside forces at play. The symbolic frame views the world objectively, using the facts as a way to interpret the events which occur. Symbolic leaders incorporate stories, ceremonies, and symbols to convey their thoughts and goals for their organization. This also has a lot to do with the culture that an organization exists in. To recap the 4 frames, we see that each one has its own unique purpose. However, we do feel as a group that the article was lacking in real-world examples. It left us to go out and search how each one might interact with each other in a real-life situation. In this section, labeled Research on Leaders' Cognition, we will discuss the sample groups, research methods, and qualitative and quantitative investigations used in this experiment. This article analyzes 2 sample groups of principals, one from Broward County, Florida, and the other from the Republic of Singapore. Each principal respondent would submit a 1 to 2 page report of challenging leadership cases which they had experienced. The major factors between these 2 principals include size, structure, and culture. The Broward County school system is the 2nd largest school district in Florida. They serve urban and suburban communities. The Republic of Singapore, however, is a national school system, roughly the size of Chicago. The structure of both of these is fairly similar, as they have worked hard to unify the decision-making process across the districts. They also have unified testing protocols that level the playing field across the board. The culture is very different. In Singapore, they do not have the political pressures, such as the Board of Education and different political leaders that run for office here in the United States. This allows them to focus their efforts more on internal school activities. In qualitative investigations, the main focus of this observation was on how many frames do leaders use and which ones do they use. The main question to be uncovered here was how contextual differences would affect the issues that principals saw as important. The findings of the qualitative research revealed that over half of the school officials used 2 frames in their conflict resolution. Less than 1/4 used more than 2 frames, and around 5% used all 4 frames of leadership. It was seen that the human resource frame was observed the most in both environments. The structural frame was the 2nd most prevalent in the study, with 60% of the principals utilizing this style. Political themes were 3rd in frequency, but there was a definite skew towards the American Broward County cases. Almost half of these reports show the political frame being used because of the structure of the education system and its outside factors. Only 20% of the administrators in Singapore used the political frame to solve issues, as they were more focused internally due to the unified school system. The symbolic frame was least used in the study, however it was much more frequent in Singapore due to Chinese cultures associated with this region. The quantitative investigations were broken up into two sections of a survey. The first section used a Likert scale in which administrators would rate themselves and also be rated by their colleagues. The second section used a 5-point rating scale addressing 2 dimensions of leadership for each frame, making for a total of 8 categories. These included supportive and participative for human resources, analytic and organized for structural, powerful and adroit for political, and inspirational and charismatic for symbol. The second section of the survey also contained a list to rank the participants from 1 being most like the individual to 4 least like the individual based on these words used to describe the leader. Each section finished with a universal question of how effective the individual was as either a manager and then also as a leader, that we wanted to test the correlation between these two terms. The results showed strong correlation in individuals being rated highly as both a leader and a manager. The main questions to be answered in this quantitative report revealed how the frames affected each leader's thinking and how does one's views and culture affect the ability to lead in varying situations. Overall, with research on leaders' cognition, we felt that it was very well done. However, with qualitative investigation, we're still lacking those real-world examples and maybe even further analysis of how these frames are able to make the leader more effective in the way that they are used. We did like that the table provided us with frame-related issues and the actions associated with them. In the quantitative investigation, we felt like the research was a little bit more broad and in-depth. This helped us see how each frame would be used in a real-world situation. In summary, the qualitative analysis showed that the majority of principles only use 1 to 2 frames, with human resource and structural being the most frequently used. The principals in Singapore were much more apt to use the symbolic frame in their leadership style compared to political, which was the opposite case for Broward County. This simply came down to the cultures related to both systems. Both types of data revealed that the ability to use multiple frames was key in the principal's effectiveness as a leader and manager. The use of the symbolic frame was associated more with success for leadership and principals than it was for administrators in other environments. The research showed that women performed at an equal or higher level in conflict resolutions as men did in the study. It was noted that men and women are judged by different expectations and varying criteria. Women are judged on the capacity to organize and think rationally, while men are judged on their ability to be warm and participative. We did feel as a group that this was thrown in very late in the research. We would have liked to have seen additional research showing how men and women varied in the way that they used frames and how they dealt with these different situations, as well as the effectiveness that correlated with each. With Team Alpha Tampa's final thoughts, we leave you with this. Many different paths can be taken on the road to success. Over the years, different leaders have developed varied methods to take their companies to reach the maximum potential. There is still a mystery involving the search for the perfect method of leadership. In Reframing Leadership, Lee Bowman and Terrence Steele attempt to discover what methods are most used and most effective. They label these different theories as structural, human resource, political, and symbolic. Once again, we do believe that the research was well done, but the explanation was lacking in depth. We would like to see more examples of how to use these frames in everyday life. However, we will take the research and use our own interpretations to create a greater self-awareness of the frames that we use on a daily basis. We hope that you have learned more about reframing leadership and hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thank you for your time.